In the 7th and 8th centuries, a dynasty based in Damascus ruled an empire that stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the borders of India. This was the Umayyad Caliphate, the second major caliphate after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Its armies crossed deserts, mountains, and seas. Its administrators governed Christians, Jews, Arabs, Berbers, Persians, and many other peoples. Its rulers transformed a rapidly expanding religious community into a vast imperial state. But the Umayyad story is not only one of conquest. It is also a story of civil war, hereditary power, religious accommodation, political tension, and cultural formation. To understand the Umayyads is to understand a turning point in Islamic and world history, the moment when the early caliphate became an empire. The Umayyads rose after a period of intense crisis. The first caliphs after Muhammad are known as the Rashidun, or rightly guided caliphs. Under them, Muslim rule expanded rapidly beyond Arabia into former Byzantine and Sasanian territories. But political unity was fragile. The third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, came from the Umayyad clan, a powerful family of the Quraysh tribe. His assassination in 656 opened a deep conflict over authority, justice, and leadership. Ali ibn Abi Talib became caliph, but his rule was challenged by Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, the governor of Syria and a member of the Umayyad family. The resulting conflict, known as the First Fitna, was the first major civil war in the Muslim community. When Ali was assassinated in 661, Muawiyah emerged as the dominant political figure. Muawiyah's importance came from more than family background. For years he had governed Syria, a wealthy and strategically vital province with experienced administrators, established cities, and military resources. Syria had once been part of the Byzantine world, and its population included large Christian communities with long traditions of bureaucracy and urban life. Muawiyah built a strong local power base there. When he became caliph, he made Damascus the capital rather than Medina or Kufa. This decision changed the center of gravity of the caliphate. The Umayyad state was now anchored in Syria, closer to the Mediterranean, closer to Byzantine frontiers, and connected to older imperial traditions. Damascus became not just a residence, but the command center of a new political order. One of the most consequential Umayyad changes was the move toward hereditary rule. Earlier caliphs had come to power through various forms of selection, consultation, or political acceptance. Muawiyah, however, arranged for his son Yazid to succeed him. This did not simply settle a succession question, it redefined what the caliphate could be. Supporters saw dynastic succession as a way to prevent renewed civil war and maintain stability across a vast realm. Critics saw it as a departure from earlier ideals of leadership and communal consent. When Muawiyah died in 680, opposition to Yazid's rule helped ignite the Second Fitna, another major civil war. The Umayyads survived, but the dynasty was shaken. By 684, the Sufyanid line of Muawiyah was replaced by Marwan ibn al-Hakam, who founded the Marwanid branch of the dynasty. The Marwanids restored Umayyad authority after the chaos of the Second Fitna. Their task was enormous: reunite the caliphate, reassert control over rebellious regions, and make the empire governable. This required more than battlefield victories. It required administration, taxation, communication, and symbols of legitimacy. The Umayyad caliphs inherited lands with different languages, customs, and institutions. Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Persia, and North Africa each had their own traditions of government. To rule effectively, the Umayyads often adapted existing structures rather than destroying them. Local officials, including non-Muslims, continued to play important roles. Over time, the caliphs strengthened central authority and gave the empire a more distinct Islamic and Arabic character, helping turn a conquest state into a more integrated imperial system. Expansion was one of the defining features of Umayyad rule. In the west, Muslim armies pushed across North Africa, conquering the Maghreb after long and difficult campaigns. From there, in 711, forces crossed into the Iberian Peninsula, known in Arabic as Al-Andalus. Within a few years, much of Hispania came under Muslim rule. In the east, Umayyad armies moved into Transoxiana, beyond the Oxus River, reaching deep into Central Asia. They also advanced into Sind, in the northwestern part of the Indian subcontinent. At its height, the Umayyad Caliphate covered around 15 million square kilometers. That made it one of the largest empires in history by land area. Its reach connected the Atlantic, Mediterranean, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, and Silk Road worlds. The empire's size created both strength and strain. Conquest brought tribute, land, trade routes, and prestige. But governing such a huge territory was difficult. The Umayyad caliphs had to manage frontier armies, tribal rivalries, provincial governors, religious communities, and local elites. Communication across the empire could take weeks or months. A decision made in Damascus had to travel across deserts and mountain ranges before it could be enforced. In many regions, the caliph's authority depended on the loyalty of governors and military commanders. This made the Umayyad system powerful but vulnerable. When the center was strong, the empire could project force across continents. When the center weakened, distant provinces could become centers of rebellion, ambition, or separatism. The Umayyad population was extraordinarily diverse. Muslims were still not necessarily the majority everywhere in the early period. In many conquered regions, Christians remained numerous, especially in Syria and Egypt. Jewish communities also lived under Umayyad rule. The Caliphate generally allowed Christians and Jews, as recognized monotheistic communities, to practice their religions in exchange for payment of the jizya, a poll tax levied on non-Muslim subjects. Muslims, by contrast, were exempt from jizya but were expected to pay zakat, a religious obligation associated with charity and support for the Muslim community. This system was not modern equality, but it was a structured way of incorporating religious diversity into the state. It also reflected practical governance. The Umayyads ruled millions of people whose cooperation was necessary. Religious tolerance under the Umayyads was also tied to politics. In Syria, many Christian families had served the Byzantine administration before the Muslim conquest. They possessed skills in record-keeping, finance, language, and diplomacy. Early Umayyad rulers employed Christians in prominent positions, not simply out of generosity, but because their expertise helped the state function. This policy helped Muawiyah secure support in Syria and made his rule more stable. It also shows how early Islamic empire building worked in practice. Conquest did not instantly replace every institution. Instead, the new rulers relied on existing talent while gradually reshaping the system around their own needs. The Umayyad state was therefore both new and deeply connected to older imperial traditions of the Near East. The Umayyad era is often considered a formative period for Islamic art and public architecture. As the caliphs ruled over older Byzantine, Persian, and local artistic worlds, they began to develop a visual language of their own. Mosques, palaces, coins, inscriptions, and decorative programs helped express imperial power and religious identity. Arabic became increasingly important as a language of administration and authority. Monumental building projects presented the caliphate as a confident civilization, not merely a military regime. This mattered because empires communicate through symbols. Buildings and inscriptions told subjects and rivals that the Umayyads were legitimate rulers of a world empire. The foundations laid in this period influenced later Islamic art, architecture, and statecraft for centuries. Yet beneath the appearance of imperial strength, tensions accumulated. Some Muslims resented the privileges of Arab elites, especially in newly conquered regions where non-Arab converts could feel treated as second-class members of the community. Tribal rivalries within the Arab military establishment also created instability. Opposition groups criticized Umayyad rule on religious, political, and social grounds. For some, the problem was hereditary monarchy. For others, it was taxation, regional favoritism, or the dominance of Syrian forces. The Abbasid movement eventually gathered many of these grievances. Claiming a connection to the Prophet's family through Abbas, an uncle of Muhammad, the Abbasids built support especially in the eastern provinces, where dissatisfaction with Umayyad rule was strong. In 750, the Abbasid revolution overthrew the Umayyad Caliphate. The dynasty that had ruled from Damascus for nearly 90 years was defeated, and the center of power shifted eastward under the Abbasids. But the Umayyad story did not end there. A survivor of the dynasty escaped to Al-Andalus, where the Umayyads established an emirate and later a caliphate, with its capital at Córdoba. In time, Córdoba became one of the great intellectual and cultural centers of the Islamic world, associated with science, medicine, philosophy, and invention during the broader Islamic Golden Age. The original Umayyad Caliphate had fallen, but its legacy continued in the West. Its history remains one of the clearest examples of how conquest, administration, religion, and culture combined to shape the medieval world. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.